Hello everyone, and welcome to this presentation on applying social psychology to the media. This is for Sociology 627, Applied Social Psychology, and my name is Jose Mario Olivas-Blanco. I'm an MA candidate. So let's start off by defining social psychology. And according to the American Psychological Association, social psychologists are interested in all aspects of personality and social interaction, exploring the influence of interpersonal and group relationships on human behavior. They further explain that social psychologists study how social influence, social perception, and social interaction influence individual and group behavior. So when we talk about social psychology, it combines the psychological aspects of the individual with the social positioning of sociology. Now that we have defined what social psychology is, why should we apply it to the media? We should apply social psychology to the media because the psychological effects of the media are varied. When a particular type of content, such as violence, is prevalent in the media, the effects can be quite pronounced. And so because these effects are so pronounced and the media is so widespread, social psychology offers a toolkit, a very powerful toolkit for analysis. It offers, like we mentioned with the social psychology definition, not only the psychological, but also how that psychological influences other people and how the social positioning influences the individual. So specifically within media, social media has exploded in the last few years, and social psychology has a great amount of toolkits and ideas to contribute to this space. Social media use is high among teens, and as the Pew Research Center found, 95% of teens now report they have a smartphone or access to one. These mobile connections are in turn fueling more persistent online activities. 45% of teens now say they are online on a near constant basis. So clearly 95% of teens is an enormous number, and 45% of teens, half, is also an enormous amount of teens to be on their phones on a near constant basis. This means that a higher number are on their phones, a decent amount, but not enough to classify themselves as a near constant basis. So such high rates of use fundamentally change the way that these teens experience socialization and relations with others. Social psychology has potential to help the situation and aid in the studying of it. The social media platform of TikTok has exploded in popularity recently with its short videos and imaginative content creators. It's a very used site. And interestingly enough, Tourette's as a hashtag has grown in popularity too, in this year and the previous year. And according to a recent report by the British Medical Journal, since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, pediatricians and child mental health practitioners have noticed an increase in tic symptoms in some children and adolescents already diagnosed with tic disorders. Interestingly, clinicians have also seen a marked increase in presentations of sudden and new onset of severe tics and tic-like attacks. There is some concern that social media and websites such as TikTok that promote the sharing of videos of influencers with symptoms may have a part to play. These sites appear to have exploded in popularity. For example, the site TikTok #Tourette's. The role of social media needs further exploration, particularly the potential for quote-unquote contagion and the maladaptive gains that might unintentionally arise from this peer identification. So we see from this report that two things are happening. People with Tourette's have more symptoms, and more people are presenting with symptoms. To continue in the exploration and explanation of this Tourette's TikTok phenomenon, we have an article entitled TikTok Tics, a Pandemic Within a Pandemic. And in this article, a group of physicians and researchers compared the phenomenology of TikTok tics to typical tic disorders. The researchers found that TikTok tics are distinct from what is typically seen in patients with Tourette syndrome, although they share many characteristics with functional tics. They say, "We believe this to be an example of mass sociogenic illness, which involves behaviors, emotions, or conditions spreading spontaneously through a group." So between this article and the other report, we see that there is definitely something going on with the incidence of symptoms of tics related to Tourette's, and TikTok may be to blame for this higher incidence. We spoke previously of how social psychology has a powerful toolkit to apply to the media, and so specifically here for this social media phenomenon of TikTok Tourette's, we can help unravel it with social psychology. So Foucault's ideas about knowledge and power can help explain how these categories of mental illness and symptoms are created and then distorted through social media. Foucault talked a lot about the power of institutions, how knowledge is created, and how these have a back and forth between each other. In this case, the institution or the power holder might be TikTok itself, with the users being in a constant back and forth of meaning creation, of knowledge creation. And so, as Gooding explains, Foucault claims that power has a positive epistemic role, not only constraining it, but also producing it. Further, knowledge can have a transforming effect on the power structures that give rise to it. Social psychology can also help unravel the Tourette's TikTok phenomenon with the concept of the self-fulfilling prophecies, and these are defined as situations where a person's expectations can influence his or her own and others' behaviors in a way that will confirm the person's beliefs. And so we can see this in a teen perhaps seeing these videos, then believing that their own behavior, which might be normal in any other circumstances, is now a symptom, and we can imagine how this could snowball into a sort of self-diagnosis. And of course, teens are experts in their own lives, but they are not experts of medical symptomatology and diagnoses. So the influence of social media on teens is enormous because they spend hours a day on these sites and their brains are developing, specifically their frontal cortex is still developing. There's great potential for influence, which means great potential for harm for these young people. And we see in this possible sociogenic illness of Tourette's within the TikTok community that this may be already happening. This is certainly not to detract from people with Tourette's who suffer from a debilitating disease, but it is rather to wrestle with ideas of how much power social media has and how social psychology can help unravel these multifaceted and multi-layered phenomena. So to end the presentation, I would like to consider a brainstorming of further exploration of topics that are related to what we saw today in the presentation. So the theme was social media and mental illness, specifically the phenomenon of Tourette's and TikTok, but there's a lot more to think about with social media and mental illness. How does social media affect people with mental illness? Can it create it? How does it affect people without mental illness? And vice versa. There's so much to think about in this arena because it's only going to increase in all likelihood, or social media will take up different venues in our lives. There's also the topic of identity formation in the age of social media. How do these kids and teens who have grown up with this go about the world? How do they think and interact with others? And how can we combat the influence of social media? What are some alternatives to it? What might the future hold in technological advances that exacerbate this issue? And what is the role of sociology in all this?